Hello and welcome to The Radical. I'm Christina.
And I'm Nicole. On our podcast, we delve into the roots of metaphysical wisdom.
That's right, Nicole. Our podcast is all about exploring those fundamental truths and practices that nourish your mind, body, and spirit.
Yes, Christina, we want to make metaphysical concepts easy to understand and accessible, especially for those who don't have a ton of time to do all the research.
Right? We'll do the research as well as share our experiences and perspectives, hoping to empower you, our listener, to find balance and magic in your day-to-day.
Inspired by the essence of the word radical, proceeding from the root, let's explore the roots of well-being and self-healing together.
This is The Radical with Christina and Nicole, two metaphysical girls in the material world. Hello and welcome to the Radical Podcast. This is Christina.
And this is Nicole. Welcome to today's episode.
We're going to talk about superstitions in the modern world just in time for spooky season when this podcast gets released. The first segment, we're going to define what superstition is and cover how superstitions developed in human culture. Second segment, we discuss the why, and we have some fun with different superstitions that we've had experiences with and that we've found in our research. I have the Rabbit Game of Superstitions game deck right here that we talked about briefly in one of the previous podcasts, and we'll post a picture of it if you're interested in getting it. But we're going to pull some cards out and quiz ourselves, sprinkled in throughout the podcast today. And message from the universe at the end of our podcast. And I'm using the Goddess Power Oracle deck. We'll see what the goddesses have to say to us today.
Rabbit, that came up in my research. And I believe if you say rabbit on the first day of the month, it's supposed to bring you good luck.
There we go. This isn't the first day of the month, but we'll just say it for this episode. Rabbit. We're going to start right out with a question. Oh, this one's good. So the question is, for a month of good luck. Oh my gosh, Nicole. Oh my gosh.
What does it say, Christina?
I just pulled this card randomly out of the deck. For a month of good luck, repeat the word blank upon waking on the first day of every month. A, tiger, B, peach, C, rabbit, or D, money.
I'm going to have to go see rabbit, Christina.
Are you kidding me? Oh my gosh. I have just like goosebumps right now that I picked this card. And I shuffled this before we used it today. Okay, so anyway, so the answer is C, rabbit. If you forget to say rabbit, you could say tibar as your last words before going to bed that night.
Which is rabbit backwards.
How funny is that?
That is too funny.
The universe is already talking to us right now with that card.
So the definitions of superstition that I included for today's episode are 1, a widely held but unjustified belief in supernatural causation leading to certain consequences of an action or event, or a practice based on such a belief. 2, a false conception of causation. And 3, a belief based on ignorance.
Etymology, I always love to know where a word comes from. So superstition is Latin, which parts of it mean standing over, which we can translate as in transcending or standing outside of ordinary logic.
And that definition, that etymology, really explains why superstitions can be classified as something metaphysical. So we spent our first episode defining metaphysics, but it bears repeating now that metaphysics is the study of the most general features of reality, including existence, objects and their properties, possibility and necessity, space and time, change, causation, and the relation between matter and mind. So superstitions claim causation and explain the relationship between matter, for example, a broken mirror, and the meaning in our minds. 7 years of bad luck is the meaning derived from a broken mirror.
So I have a list of just about 5 main core concepts of how superstitions came to be. The first is seeing patterns. Humans are trying to make sense of the seeming chaos of the natural world, the world around them. It's in our genetic code as human beings how we interact with the world around us, defining what is common and then recognizing and seeing what is different. So you're in a forest and all the trees are the same except for this one tree. Where did this tree come from? Why is it different? Is it special? I assign a meaning to that tree that's different. So if I make something from that tree and carry it with me, do I now carry its specialness or its uniqueness with me? And another thing that we still do a lot today are shooting stars. The sky doesn't move. But if you see a shooting star, that's different. That's special. That's unique. So you want to mark that with doing something or saying something to mark that specialness and kind of harness some of that specialness or that uniqueness for yourself. Noticing the difference in patterns, which led me down to why isn't it just a coincidence? And a coincidence is a remarkable occurrence of events or circumstances without apparent causal connection. Without apparent causal connection. So a coincidence could be synchronicity, and yet their occurrence together has meaning only for the person who observes it. So as human beings, we choose what we remember. Generally, we remember what enhances our beliefs. That's just how it goes, folks.
The confirmation bias.
Point 2, or concept 2, causation, metaphysical concept. In an analysis published in 2007 in Human Nature, suggests that superstition is the inevitable result of humans using what is called adaptive learning strategy. Again, that is in our genetic code. Our species learns by observing the world, identifying patterns, and adapting beliefs accordingly. We use the rules to distinguish between real patterns and randomness. The rules must account for both the cost of a false belief and the cost of a true belief. The third concept is agency, which means something has or had an influence on seemingly random events. An agency in itself is enough for a whole podcast. But we'll talk more about it in the second segment. Agency has to do with things happening or not happening because you recognized a spirit, a god or goddess, a ghost, an ancestor, but some other force had a hand in what is happening or not happening. That's agency. And this one, law of small numbers. For mathematical reasons that I'm not going to get into, small sample sizes don't act like large sample sizes. Our personal experiences are small sample sizes, and each act or event is independent of the other. Generally, this comes into play when we're talking about gambling, flipping coins, beginner's luck, things that seem to be related but aren't, which led me down, what is luck? What do we think luck is? And the definition is success or failure, apparently brought by chance rather than through one's own actions. Chance considered as a force that causes good or bad things to happen. And also luck is sometimes regarded as bringing about or portending good or bad things. And portending means it's a sign. And then finally, another main concept, and I'm sure there's more concepts besides these 5, is the placebo effect, which is tied in closely with the classical or operant conditioning behavior. Classical conditioning is like you wearing a certain shirt and you win at your game. So you attach a meaning to the shirt. You attach luck to the shirt. And the same thing, it's the operant has almost the exact same definition, and it involves associating a particular behavior with rewarding or reinforcing a certain outcome. So whatever the behavior might be, or whatever the totem or item might be, we're basically creating our own superstition based on our experience, which is a small size sample, which follows the law of small numbers. And the benefit of superstitions in that, going right back into that placebo effect, I have a study here. So the benefit of superstition may go beyond just emotional comfort. In 2010, psychologists at the University of Cologne found that invoking good luck related superstitions by telling participants phrases such as, "I'll keep my fingers crossed," or give them lucky charms, measurably improved performance in activities as varied as golfing, motor dexterity, memory games, and anagram puzzles. And that would be superstitions based on the placebo effect. And I have another one. Superstitious beliefs can amplify placebo effects. 2021 study in the cognitive processing hypothesized that people who are more superstitious would get a bigger boost from a placebo treatment during a memory task. The authors split 104 participants into placebo and control groups, and after assessing everyone's superstitious tendencies, they gave the participants in the placebo group colored water and told them it would enhance their memory. And the highly superstitious people who drank the supposed memory water, or the memory elixir, recalled more words than their less superstitious counterparts. And the opposite was true for the control group, who drank a plain glass of water. So even though there might not be any magical powers, the psychological impacts of believing in them are tangible and measurable and real.
It's really fascinating because when we started this research, I was like, oh, superstitions are around just to scare us. Because a lot of them are kind of scary and downright spooky. It was really interesting to hear you say emotional comfort, because that came up in my research, that superstitions can actually be soothing. And then in regards to that research you shared, it's giving confidence. That's kind of what I heard. It's making the participants, for example, in that memory task, more confident and more successful, which by being successful, you become more confident. So that's a really interesting take on superstitions.
Yeah. So to close out the list for the first segment, we've got Rabbit Rabbit card quiz. In French folklore, a blank will help a lost child get home. A, white moth. B, blue butterfly. C, praying mantis. Or D, ladybug.
Ooh, I want to say ladybug.
Yeah.
D.
So
Is it?
I've always been told ladybugs are lucky, that you're in for good luck if they land on you. But the answer is praying mantis. So in French folklore, the praying mantis is lucky. And here it says at the back of the card, in Greece, also, they say praying mantis can lead lost travelers home. I don't know if I've ever seen a praying mantis in the wild where I live.
If I have, it's been a long, long time. Aren't they
Yeah,
endangered?
I don't know. We'll find out, listeners. And at some point, we'll recall this and let you know what we find out about praying mantises. But they are lucky and they will help you if you're lost.
I notice different categories or types of superstitions. So some of them indicate whether or not you're going to have good luck or bad luck. Some of them are predictive. A lot of superstitions claim to predict future weather. Some are preventative, and some of them, for lack of a better word, fix.
Yeah.
The classic example would be if you spill the salt, you take a pinch of salt and throw it over your left shoulder, and that will fix the bad luck from spilling the salt to begin with. There's a lot of variation culture to culture.
When we started this and I sat and I thought, what do I do that is superstitious that I don't even realize? And a lot of people might not even realize that is superstitious. Blowing out birthday candles for wishes, wishing on falling stars, touching wood after negative statements, the whole jinx thing, our attachment to numbers that pop up, and like you said, anything that causes or brings you good luck. These things are so deep inside my subconscious. I don't even know how they got there.
Yeah.
It's just like things that your parents told you, things that you learned in school, things that you picked up in popular culture.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much that we do almost on a daily basis that is tied in with superstition. A lot of why I still do things is I feel like it connects me with my past or with my
Mm.
childhood or with a memory, nostalgia, right? So
Yeah.
there's a sense of, for me, a sense of comfort, a
Mm-hmm.
connection to culture. I could see that coming up if you are, the rabbit superstitious deck that I have here talks about what is what happens and what superstitions and traditions are part of all their cultures. If I had some that were specific for my culture, I would feel like even it would just provide me with a connection and family memories. If you have a fond memory of a relative or a close family friend telling you ladybugs are good luck, that you want to remember that every time you see one.
Yeah.
And it's probably a way of honoring our ancestors as well, right?
Yeah. I can see
Kind
that
of
for
holding
sure.
on to traditions.
Yeah.
And those are hard to let go because,
In a little bit, I'm going to share about some kind of region specific superstitions. And the man who put together this video would say very frequently as he was presenting these superstitions, oh, my grandmother really believed in this one. I can remember my
oh,
grandmother teaching this to me. I can remember my
yeah,
grandmother taking this particular superstition very seriously.
yeah.
So, all throughout this video, he's constantly referencing his grandmother.
Oh,
So, where do superstitions come from? So, unlucky number 13, as an example, has roots in Christianity. That surprised me. I did not know that. This is tied to Jesus and the Last Supper and the number of people kind of at that table. That's where the
oh.
unlucky 13 comes from.
I
The
thought it was
fourth,
older than that.
my research
Yeah.
has it tied to Christianity.
Mm.
Also tied to Christianity, the four-leaf clover. It is believed that Eve took the four-leaf clover out of the Garden of Eden. The idea behind it's bad luck to walk under a ladder comes
Mm-hmm.
from Christianity as well. A ladder leaning against the wall forms a triangle. By walking underneath it, you're
Oh,
disrespecting the Holy Trinity. Knocking on wood, which we mentioned, is an Indo European superstition, and it was believed that the spirits lived in the trees, so knocking on wood would invoke their protection. Many other superstitions come from pagan religions before Christianity. Many other superstitions come from what's been called unfortunate associations or coincidences. So, an example here, the Italians consider number 17 to be unlucky. The Roman numeral is X, V, I. And so if you rearrange the letters of those Roman numerals, it makes Vixie, which means I had lived. So I am dead. So they don't
Oh my
like
gosh.
that number. So kind of, again, an unfortunate association. That's a number, but if you rearrange those letters, it has
How
a
about
different
that?
meaning. Same idea, same concept in Japan. The number 14 sounds very close to must die. So 14 in Japan is considered unlucky.
Did you hear about four in
Mm-hmm.
Chinese is also uh, close to the word death? So that is
Yes.
their unlucky number.
I think in
I just remembered
Japan,
that.
it's that base of 4, but then when you put the 1 in front
Mm,
of it, the 1 adds the must. So
how
must
about
die.
that? Language,
Mm-hmm.
coincidence and language causing
Yes.
superstition. Yeah.
Yes. And then my last little note on where do superstitions come from. Others come from outdated advice. So, one superstition is that it's bad luck to light 3 cigarettes with 1 match. But this came up during the World Wars when soldiers were in trenches. And if you kept that match lit long enough to light 3 cigarettes, the snipers could better see you at nighttime. So you were truly in danger. Is it circumstantial advice or is it a superstition? How would that hold up in today's modern
How
world?
about that? I love that. I didn't know that. That's such a
Yeah.
cool story.
So some are tied to religion, whether it's pagan religions, Christianity, or old spiritual beliefs, unfortunate associations or coincidences, or outdated advice. So, as Christina mentioned, there's a lot of causation
Mm-hmm.
that comes up with superstition. So, this happened because this happened first. So, it caused this. And what I found interesting was how superstitions can be about you, like you're going to have a bad day because it's Friday the 13th, but how some superstitions impact other people. And I thought that
Yeah.
was kind of messed up.
Do you know what I was thinking about this morning when I was thinking about causation? The very popular movie Grease.
Mm-hmm.
They're getting ready to do the car race
Mm-hmm.
and they find the lucky penny.
Yeah.
And the girl brings the lucky penny to Kaneki, who was originally going to drive the car, but it falls and then he hits his head so that Danny has to drive the car. So good luck, Danny. He had a successful day. But what happened to Kaneki? He had a very bad day.
Mm-hmm.
And if you remove any one of those elements, if he hadn't dropped the penny, if they hadn't found the penny, if he hadn't hit his head, or if the door, I think one of the guys opened the door and hit him,
Mm-hmm.
none of that would have happened. That's causation.
Yes.
That there is something good, but usually something bad that happens
Yes.
in that string of events.
Yes. That's a
It wasn't
really
a
good
lucky penny
example.
for it wasn't a lucky penny for Kaneki.
Right. Right. Good example. The Japanese word for thumb, the translation there is parent finger. So if you
Mm.
go to a funeral or you're visiting a cemetery, the superstition is you have to tuck your thumb into your hand and cover it with your other fingers so that you can hide your thumb in a way that it's not visible. Otherwise, the superstition is your parents will die
Oh my
because you've left
gosh.
your parent finger exposed.
That's a lot of pressure. That's like
That's a lot
stepping
of
on a
pressure.
crack.
Yes, exactly.
Break your
Break your mother's
grandmother's
back.
back. Break your mother's back.
Yeah. There's friendship superstition. So if you're walking together and there's like a telephone pole, if you split that pole, it could
Oh,
cut your friendship ties.
I've
If
heard
you're
that.
Yeah, I've had friends who literally will grab my hand, pull me back and
Yeah.
be like, "Walk on the same side with me. Don't split the pole."
Yeah.
Not passing sharp objects directly to your friend. So if you're passing them a knife or scissors, you would lay the scissors down on the table in front of them. They would pick up the scissors from the table because the superstition is passing sharp things directly to your friend can cut the friendship ties.
Oh my goodness.
I did think it was important to note that some superstitions are about you and me having good luck, me having a good day, versus if I don't do this thing, it could harm my friend or my parents
Yeah.
or my family.
And that's causation. That we believe that we will affect the health or the spine of our family member by our actions.
Yeah. And I think you nailed it, Christina. It feels like a lot of pressure. Like, oh my gosh, I better be on my P's and Q's because I don't want to accidentally bring death upon my family. It is a little intense. It is a lot of pressure. So I don't know how I feel about those.
Yeah.
Like I said earlier, I think it's kind of messed up.
I don't have any of those in my daily consideration, I would say. Most of the superstitions that I'm aware of that I do are not like those.
Yes. And I
don't.
see,
Yeah.
I'm looking ahead at your notes and I'm excited to talk about crystals and rocks and kind of things from the earth. But I came across this actually, I was watching a show that had nothing to do with superstitions, but the show brought up in sort of a comedic way how tourists take volcanic rock off Hawaii's islands as a souvenir. They bring them home. First of all, it's illegal to take rocks or plants or anything from a national park. That's a big no-no. The Hawaiians believe taking volcanic rock out of Hawaii is bad luck. And what I found really humorous was this show talked about how the tourists get home, bad things start happening, and they are mailing volcanic rock back to Hawaii with apology notes attached.
Yeah. I think the goddess is Pele, the goddess of the fire or the volcano.
It is Pele.
Oh, that's such an interesting show that it happened, and it happened enough that they could collect enough people to make a show about, we have to do this. We have to return the volcanic rock back to Pele, back to Hawaii. So that is agency. Us assigning or us believing that these objects are being controlled by or controlled with separate agency from ourselves. Crystals. Do you believe crystals have agency, or do we use them as totems or keepsakes or reminders? I have an intention bowl, and most of the bowl is green jade. And green jade is considered lucky. For me, my intention is that I do as much as I can, and I do my work and my research when my goal is in my hand. And then when my hope is that when this goal or this paperwork or whatever it is that your desired outcome is, after it has left my hands, I am hoping for luck that it works its way through the system, getting in the right hands of the right people at the right time of day, who can approve or check the block or whatever your intention is, that it can be moved on its way to your desired outcome. Do I think the jade actually has an outside effect on it, or does it just help me send my energetic good luck to my desired goal? I don't know. I have crystals everywhere and I use them for lots of things, but I hadn't thought about this aspect of it until we did this podcast. And I was like, do I think crystals have agency? Or do I think they are reminding me to keep sending my energy or my best work or my
I hear you.
my goals to what my desired outcome is? I don't have the answer, listeners. We have to discover and research that one together.
using your jade green intention bowl in a way to kind of acknowledge that there is some unseen universal force. Metaphysics as a whole acknowledges that there are unseen forces and laws
Mm-hmm.
at play. I liked what you said too, that you hadn't thought about giving your crystals agency. I think it's really important as we are in this metaphysical realm to start recognizing what we do give agency to versus what we
Mm-hmm.
don't. That's just such a nice practice. It's releasing, surrendering, letting go, and letting these unseen forces work with you. It was also good that you said you do your part. You
Yes.
know, I'm not just waking up in the morning and holding a piece of citrine and being like, may all my dreams come true. May I be
Exactly.
confident and motivated. That's part of it. But the other part is, what am I doing? What actions am I taking to support
Exactly.
that goal, to work towards that goal?
And then that citrine becomes your touchstone.
Yes.
It becomes your reminder. And I think a
Yes.
lot of superstitious items that we do, we say the crystal has its own vibration. Yes, I believe that. And it has its own energy field. Yes, I believe that. But what intention I put in it is up to me and how much
Mm-hmm.
importance
Yeah.
I put in it. The other thing with the intention bowl and choosing jade is the other thing when you are waiting for some paperwork to be approved, purchase of a house, purchase of a car, waiting for a job, when it's out of your hands, you can worry about it. And I don't need to worry about it. I need to focus on sending that good luck to it, having a positive emotional connection to the event as opposed to a negative one in my
Yes.
head. That has been helpful for me.
Yes. And that brings to mind the idea that superstitions can be soothing. It's what you just said, Christina. It's out of your hands, but you have a choice even in that moment of not having any control. You can worry, you can be anxious, or you can have a positive mindset. You can be positive and hopeful, and you can relax. Imagine
Yeah.
that, relaxing in the face of uncertainty. That plays in a little bit too to this idea that superstitions can be preventative. You're putting that energy out there. May the best outcome happen for the highest good of all. Another question is, do superstitions give us a greater sense of control or certainty? You could have a
Mm-hmm.
lucky crystal. I like to wear amethyst when I go out into the world because I have assigned agency to that amethyst. I believe it's going to keep me calm and serene, that it's going to put a protective force field bubble
Yeah.
around me, preventing bad energy from permeating my energy body. So that's a preventative
Yeah.
superstition.
It's going to give you a good day. You're going to have a good day when you have it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I wonder, when I was looking at a lot of the superstitions in the modern world that we live in today, a lot of them I feel are centered on gambling and sports
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of hobbies and maybe some work stuff. Like if you were involved in the stock market, I feel like that might feel a little bit like, not it's I know it's not gambling, but in my understanding of it, there is the sense of that there is some chance there that you can research and research and research, but there is some element of uncertainty.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the hobbies and sports and gambling have these superstitions tied to them because it is wanting to create a sense of control or a sense of, like you with your amethyst, that if I wear this, I'll have a good day. And that
Mm-hmm.
made me thinking about the things that we do in the yoga world. I'm thinking, do I have any kind of superstitious things? And I think that if you're one of those people who had to be in your spot, you know, Or in a classroom, you always have to sit in the same space. Or when I go to the grocery store, I want to park in the same spot. If we don't do that, we'll feel like we'll have a bad experience or we'll feel off. And I used to think that was just repetition and just kind of, I know that's where I like to park. I'll always remember my car is there. But I think it's also, I want to have a feeling that I can control the outcome. So if you don't get your spot in the lecture room or you don't get your spot in your yoga class, how does that make you feel? Does that change the way you feel that your experience is going to be? Is that considered superstition? Because that's causation.
Right. Superstitions can be predictive. I watched a video I mentioned earlier. This was the man who shared a lot of what his grandmother taught him. He explained it really beautifully. He said a lot of these superstitions came from whatever culture my ancestors came from. But a lot of the superstitions in this part of the country also came from people observing nature, directly observing what was happening. If you take a persimmon seed in September and cut it open, if there's a spoon shape or image in the persimmon seed, it means there's going to be heavy snow that winter. And I know Christina can see the picture in my notes, but it does look like this little tiny spoon in the middle of this seed. It's remarkable. So they had figured out all kinds of ways to look at animals and their behavior, to look at seeds, to look at nature and make predictions. Another one is light. If there's thunder and lightning in winter, 2 weeks later it will snow.
Oh my gosh. I have to pay attention to that one. So I have a persimmon tree in my backyard right outside this door. You can hear them falling right now because as we're recording this, it's September. And I went out there and collected some seeds this morning. And I'm going to take a picture of it and show you. There's a spoon in there.
I'm excited.
It is clear as the photo that you found.
We'll post it on our Instagram.
I will take a picture of it. They're very difficult to open. And the first one that I popped open, there it was. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so fascinating. But we do have one of those. I didn't even know there was that was a persimmon tree until I spent so much time out there this past month because of my new puppy. I'm out there all the time now with Michael. It's time for a card.
Yes. Card us.
Rabbit. If you eat rice on a small plate in Indonesia, your family will A, throw a party, or A, throw you a party, B, love you, C, be healthy, D, reject you. So eating rice on a small plate.
Oh gosh.
I'm going to say your family will be healthy.
I'm going to go with D. They will reject you.
You're right. D, reject you. Rice is a symbol of prosperity. So grab a big plate.
I like it.
Your instincts were spot on with that one. And I do remember hearing that rice is always a symbol of prosperity. And a lot of the prosperity intention bowls, there's always rice on the bottom for prosperity.
Have you ever heard a superstition, Christina, that you rejected as untrue, but you also still felt uncomfortable by it? You're like, wait a minute.
Like all of them
Yeah.
that aren't inconvenient for me.
Right?
Like you can recognize that Greg and I, my husband and I were in the car and I was saying something and it was a prediction of something I didn't want to happen. And there was no wood anywhere in the car for me to touch.
I've done that too in the car.
And I was very aware that my immediate reaction was to reach for something made of natural. Because that's the other thing too. If it's not wood, it's something made of natural, like paper or something.
Yeah. There
was none in the car. So I touched my head. Have you ever seen that?
I have. Yeah.
Knock on wood.
Yes. That's the best example
Yeah, I was aware of it, and then I couldn't not do it.
Yeah.
That's why you should always have a crystal with you.
Yeah.
And then just touch your crystal.
There you go.
We're just making up stuff now. There aren't enough of these superstitions in the world that Nicole and I are making up new ones.
To wrap up segment 2, I want to talk briefly about superstitions that can be debunked with science. In other words, there are scientific reasons as to why the superstitions work, essentially. So, one example I came across is, I believe it's in India. It is said, do not go outside during a solar eclipse. There's actually some scientific reasoning for this. During a solar eclipse, germs and microbes are activated. So if you go outside, there is an increased likelihood that you could become sick. And then this last little point was me brainstorming. I'm trying to tie something in, and it might fit, it might not. There was some research done a couple years ago, and this group was studying the fear of spiders. And they wanted to try to figure out, is this something we learn or is this inherited? Is there some kind of DNA component to the fear of spiders? Up until this research from a couple years ago, they were studying young adults, and this group of scientists were like, well, the people we're studying are old enough where they can learn from friends, family, whoever, that spiders are potentially dangerous. So this group studied 6-month-old babies, and they showed them pictures of spiders, and they were able to measure a stress response in a 6-month-old baby upon seeing a spider. So this group concluded that there is a DNA or inherited component to being fearful of spiders.
What?
So there's not necessarily a gene that you can turn on or off that says you will be afraid of spiders, but there is this inherent knowledge that seems to be passed through the genes. And so that got me thinking, do some of these superstitions work in the same way, where they've been repeated so much for so many generations that some of them are kind of inherent? I don't know.
It's like the language we speak. It's the food that we eat. It is just part of who we are based on
and
where
the
we grew
fact
up.
that me and you have acknowledged, I don't necessarily believe in all these superstitions, but the degree of discomfort I feel when I can't knock on wood, or there's a ladder leaning against the wall, I could walk under it and I don't think anything will happen, but I'm still not going to do it. I don't want to test that and walk under the ladder and chance it, you know? So I'm just going to
test the agency.
Yeah. So just a random thought that was in my mind. But I do wonder if there's some degree of inheriting these the way we inherit, to some degree, our fear of spiders.
And all the other common wisdoms and practical life things that we do know. Because, that's fascinating. Okay, more to come on that, listeners. A future topic I wrote down this morning was just luck. I want to do a whole podcast on luck. We'll do a whole podcast on nature versus nurture in reference to superstition.
Yeah.
Are you ready for Rabbit?
Yes.
In ancient Greece, amethyst was believed to protect you from infidelity, drunkenness, poison, or jealousy.
I want to say D, jealousy.
It's one of the properties of amethyst that I found out a long time ago. It is B, drunkenness.
Wow.
The word amethyst originates from amethostus, the ancient Greek word for sober. They would put amethyst in their goblets. because they believed that it would affect how the alcohol would affect them.
Wow.
And then if you were trying not to drink, or if you were trying to alleviate the drunkenness, you would wear amethyst or have it around you.
I love that.
I'll take a picture of the card and post it.
Yes.
And we were just talking about amethyst.
Yeah.
Oh, this is a magical deck of cards.
Yeah.
The rabbit. We're finished. That's the end of the list, Nicole.
I could keep going.
I know, right? Okay. Message from the universe. Today we are using the Goddess Power Oracle cards by Colette Baron Reed. And of course, we will take pictures and share these cards on our Instagram page. So now please choose A or B.
A.
A. Aphrodite, romantic love. The Greek goddess of romantic love, Aphrodite represents a state of ecstatic being that she now invites you to cultivate within. You can experience the world as a sensual, expressive, and creative being if you allow yourself the freedom to explore what it means to you. Perhaps this is a portent of a new partnering or a deepening of one you already have. Or perhaps this is a time for you to claim this aspect of your nature, which may have lain dormant a while. Aphrodite invites you to fall in love with your life now and choose to look for the essence and expression of love all around you. By doing so, love will increase tenfold, and you will see evidence of it everywhere you turn. This is your sacred task when Aphrodite chooses to aid and empower you. The alignment message for Aphrodite. Your alignment task is to stay present, release judgment, and see the treasure of what lies in front of you. You may discover something painful is actually a beautiful gift. Indeed, it could be exactly what you need to release the old patterns that no longer serve you. Be careful of the addictive quality of longing, yearning for elusive love, and fixation on desired outcomes. This only creates more of the energy of unmet desire, and you may find yourself unable to discern what is true. Release expectations and attachments and simply see what arises. Remain aware and accountable for your side of things. Make amends if you need to, and trust that all is well. Even your partnership with the universe may need refining as you let go of your need to have things your way. Call on the goddess Aphrodite to lead you to a healthier, more satisfying experience.
Wow.
Aphrodite. Okay, B is Gula, healing. Gula, the Babylonian goddess of medicine and healing, has come to guide you as a blessing and for your well-being. You're being invited to address the areas of your life that need healing. Perhaps you have moved so quickly through your life that you've forgotten about self-care. Perhaps the stories you've told yourself about who you are need healing. We don't always see that we are hurting ourselves or others. Take heart, for Gula comes into your world as your ally, saying that now is the most auspicious time to focus on healing in all aspects of your life. Only good things will come from your actions here. In fact, now is also the perfect time when you can be assured that you can heal rifts with others as well. Be sincere and call upon Gula for this precious commitment. You may also be called to the path of the healer now. If so, the goddess Gula supports this wholeheartedly. You just need to be willing, respect others, and do no harm. Miracles will arise as if out of nowhere. The alignment message. The goddess Gula calls you to recognize that you're running on empty. You have nothing left to give. You have reached the end of the road, and you must stop what you're doing and consider the implications of your actions run amok. Do you need to set better boundaries around your enthusiastic tendencies to say yes to everything? Have you allowed others to drain you because you feel it's your job to listen, love them, and fix them? Do your close companions cling to their victim stories and continue to impose them on you? Your alignment task is to step back and assess what is true and make new choices and maybe put yourself first. You will be glad you did. Just remember, it is sometimes the healing choice to take a break and only focus on you for a change.
Wow.
Those are the two goddesses who have messages for us today, Aphrodite and Gula.
They certainly spoke to me, both of them.
I am so glad we
Yeah.
do these cards.
Yeah.
Because even when I listen to our other episodes, I still pick a card every time I listen to it and see what the message is.
Yeah, me too. Those were great today.
Always some kernels that we need to hear and to be reminded of. Thank you for joining us today on this podcast about superstition. I do want to say one thing. I'm not superstitious, but I'm a little stitious.
We couldn't have an episode about superstition without quoting Michael Scott.
Had to.
Had to.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, listeners. We'll talk to you next week. Thank you for listening to this episode of The Radical. The Radical is written and produced by Nicole and Christina.
Listener questions can be emailed to us at theradicalpodnc@gmail.com.
Our Instagram is The Radical Pod.
Music by Van Horton. His Instagram is Van Horton Music.